Another CEO Wisdom podcast with Greg Hodgin today with us. He is CEO at ZC Institute, and he built a bunch of other interesting companies. We're gonna start talking about, which is an interesting choice of word here. Building a country. So that has been on my map since quite a while, and Greg has great expertise into that. PhD in political science. Doesn't call himself a doctor, so congrats on that, Greg. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us about what you're into nowadays.
Certainly. My name is Greg Hodgin, and like Charles said, yeah, I've got a PhD in political science. I don't call myself a doctor, except when I'm teaching, and not even then usually. For myself, what I'm doing recently, for 14 years, I actually ran a nonprofit called Peacebuilding Solutions that actually dealt with working with internally displaced people, refugees, people who have been forcibly displaced. And one of the issues I realized about that was that I was slapping a Band-Aid on a very large bullet wound. And the international humanitarian aid system is definitely, how to put this, decrepit. It's outdated. It's completely outmoded. It was designed for the 1970s and 1980s. It's 40 years out of date. And even if we could fix that, you're still fixing the symptoms of a much deeper problem, that's climate change. And so I started ZC Institute. ZC Institute is actually working on building microfusion reactors that would help solve climate change, that runs on water instead. So being able to solve energy scarcity would really help with that problem and would actually alleviate a lot of the future conflicts we're going to see over water and other resources. But when it comes to state building, my PhD was actually on state building and on why charities kind of mess things up in the field, and also how the UN in the late 20th and early 21st century engaged in state building in places where the state just wasn't able to get it together or was just being formed, like East Timor, Haiti, and things of that nature. So I studied all kinds of constitutions. I studied all kinds of institution building literature, and I also saw it in the field when I actually did my field research. So yeah, I can say that I've dealt with building states on more than one occasion. I'm working on very, very early stages of working on building a state myself. Not for me personally, but for space, and the fact that when we leave, it'll be difficult for states to actually enforce their own sovereignty, depending on where you are. If you're in orbit, that's one thing. But if you're on the moon or on Mars, you're going to want some sort of different political entity to take care of things, possibly. So we're trying to figure out better democratic alternatives for that. So I know you have a ton of questions. I want to pick my brain about state building. So by all means.
Yeah, well, peace building solutions. What is the huge hole? I didn't catch a glimpse of that because in Haiti, we all know how it went. It went pretty bad. You know, most of that money was used not to help people. It's pretty similar in Africa and in well, I'm not aware of other cases where it is that obvious. So corruption, you know, and is corruption the main problem here? What is the main problem, and how would you do things differently?
You know, it's funny you say that, because what when we talk about corruption, we usually look at it through a certain lens. So, for instance, in the United States, when we talk about lobbying and gerrymandering and things like that, in other countries that'd be corruption, but we just call that legal, right? Legal corruption is still corruption. Corruption, I don't think, is the issue. I think is the fact that when donors give money to countries and to NGOs, especially larger ones, there's so many conditions attached to that money that they can't really use it for what the locals actually want. A perfect example: when I was in Haiti, I was actually, people say, "Oh, everyone's corrupt, the government's corrupt." Well, the government's corrupt, yes, it certainly is, but there's a reason they're corrupt. I got pulled over driving down the highway. I got pulled over by the cops, and the reason is because they said there was something wrong with registration or something like that. That wasn't it. The reason was they needed $5 to eat lunch. They were shaking me down, and I asked them, because I'm that person, and I was doing research. Why do you need money? We haven't gotten paid in 6 months. So it's not that they're corrupt because they want not. And don't get me wrong, some elites, of course, are corrupt because they want to be, and they want to, use the state to collect money. But a lot of the civil servants, they're not being corrupt because they want to be. They're being corrupt because they don't have a choice. When people go, "Oh, we shouldn't pay politicians. People should just run because they want to." No. I'm always up for compensating public servants well, so they don't predate on the population, right? And this is not just a Haiti story. This is a story in Sub-Saharan Africa to Surrey, and
Human
Southeast and
nature.
South Asia. Yeah, it's not just, it is human nature. And most good democratic governance, most governments is built around ensuring that you minimize corruption. You can never drop it to zero because people are people, right? But you can disincentivize it. So one of the main things I would do is, and one things I always told people was, if you're going to give money to a charity, don't attach strings to it, right? Because the thing is that when it comes to that, if you don't trust a charity, or if you don't trust a nonprofit and you're giving them money, why are you giving them money? Because you're never going to give it back. There's no investment there. You're not going to get anything back but the good feeling. So if you don't trust them, why are you doing this? One of the most important lessons I actually carried over to the entrepreneurship that I'm doing now was someone would come up to me and be like, I want to pay for your Haiti stuff, and I want to give you, $100,000. Oh, that's fantastic. Go ahead. I want to come with you and do the work with you. You're an accountant. We're building houses, and we're building water systems. In fact, we're not usually doing it. Yeah, I want to be the one holding the shovel and so on and so forth. So this isn't about helping anybody. This is you making yourself look good, which I understand. That's one of the reasons that people do it, but I can't let you do that. That makes us look bad. That, we only have our institutional credibility to make us go forward, and having some random person who doesn't know what the hell they're doing down there isn't going to help us. So, and you see this all the time. Like a lot of what I saw in my dissertation was people who would come in. So the donors were happy because you see them giving money to a charity, right? And they're like, I gave charity X $1 million, and I studied water charities, people who built wells, charities who built wells after the Haitian earthquake, and about 3/4 of them after 6 months were broken. It was insane. And the reason is not because, one, when the money came in, they spent the money to build the wells. Don't get me wrong, there was not a lot of corruption in that regard. There was what I would consider corruption, the fact that they paid mostly Western staff, right? So they pay people. So if it was an American charity, they pay people in America to go to Haiti to do stuff, as opposed to hiring locals. They didn't listen to the locals. They didn't know the language. They made the locals sign contracts they didn't understand. The locals had no legal representation. They said, we're going to build a well here. And the village was like, that's great, but we already have a well. Can you build us a school? Well, no, because we are a water charity. And if we build a school, that's against our bylaws, and we can go to jail because we're spending money incorrectly, because our donors want us, we're a water charity. We have to build, that. Well, can you give the money to another charity that does? No, we can't do that either, because if we do that, we're going to jail too. Do you mind if we build a well? Sure, we're not going to use it though. So you see all these wells being built that no one touched. And sometimes the village would get bigger, but sometimes it wouldn't because they didn't care. I remember one village actually, they built because they didn't talk to locals, they built the well in the middle of the road, and a woman got hit by a car and died because she was trying to get water from it. And no one ever told them that they were building a road because they never asked, right? So everybody wins in the charity system. So the charity wins because they're getting the money, right? And the staff's winning because they're getting paid. The donors winning because they get to say, look, you built 1,000 water wells. The only people who didn't win, though, were the people who you're actually trying to help. And that's a system that's built in everywhere, whether it's locally, internationally, whatever. You see a lot of the money that gets invested into these companies, into these charities, get reabsorbed by Western people and Western institutions. Red Cross is a great example. 9% of the money that Haiti got, quote unquote, was paid to consultants. Where do the consultants live? In the West. So a lot of that money didn't go there. In fact, there's a great article a few years ago that came out that basically was like, hey, they raised $500 million for Haiti. They built 6 houses. That's ridiculous. So for me, there's a number of governance issues that you can fix. But the problem with governance is you can't fix one without fixing the whole thing, right? If a part of it's broken, you have to fix all of it together. And when it comes to states especially, it's difficult to do that, right? The state is a very large thing, and you only have a small amount of control over the rudder. It takes a long time to fix those things. It's easy to break. It's very easy to break a state. It's very difficult to keep it together. And I think people underestimate how tough it is to keep a well-functioning state in order. People kind of complain a lot about taxes and things like that. I'm like, a lot of people in Haiti are like, I wish I could pay taxes. There's no property tax or sales tax there. And because there's no sales tax and things like that, the roads are garbage. There's no police. There's all kinds of stuff, right? The elites kind of just scrape money up and kind of call it a day. So there's a lot of issues in that regard. And states, because once they're created, want to keep surviving, they're going to keep doing things even if it's bad for everybody else, because it's in the state's best interest to continue to exist, right? I kind of rambled a bit and I apologize. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, well, one contrarian take on the whole thing, and very simplistic, if we start from basic first principle thinking, is that humans are tough to change, right? Like, I mean, we all tried to change our friends or family or wives or husbands. It's very hard to change someone. And if you do, it's going to be by small decimal points over a large period of time. When you enter a country and the culture is ingrained, I think the first question is, do these folks really want to change? Or is it our Western self, us Westerners imposing our lifestyle? Oh, you should have this. You should be happy. You should have that, you know? And maybe that's not compatible. And obviously there's these thousands of micro reasons, corruption being one, communication barrier being another, the country and the state being established. And so I would point to that. And also probably like teaching a man to fish analogy, but again, teaching a man to fish is really damn hard, you know, because if you give free money to someone, they don't have really incentives to change. It's the lottery ticket winner analogy. You give that money to someone, they're gonna blow it all, and they're not gonna be happier in the process. If happiness was the first goal, what do you think about that?
So I would say that you're partially right and you're partially wrong in that regard. I agree with the fact that if you just do free handouts without any kind of accountability, that's what you're going to get because humans are humans, right? And that's what a lot of charities do. They just kind of come in, they just hand out stuff, right? And that's one of the issues is that they're based on this very first principle of just like, we need to go in and hand out things. Our approach was very much something different. It was much more, let's discuss with the local population what their wants are, but we're not going to ask for a day. We're going to stay for several weeks and live with them. The reason is because when you do that, you become part of the community. And also, let's be very clear. Just like you said, people learn and they condition themselves. When they see a charity coming in, oh, what kind of stuff are we going to get this time? No, we want to work with you. We don't want to just hand out free stuff. We're not a bank or something like that. Now all of a sudden, it's how can we build something towards the future? We don't talk to individuals about what they need. We talk to the communities, and communities have a way of being self-policing, right? And there's two kinds of power. There's de facto and de jure, right? De jure power is, okay, this is the community president. They were elected. They're the ones who control what's going on. De facto power is there's the old lady in the tent in the back, and she knows who's sleeping with who and whose kids are whose. She actually has the real power. She's the one who adjudicates. We don't know that when we walk in. No one does, right? In fact, she's kept secret for that exact reason. She's supposed to be, neutral and whatnot. If you don't learn the informal power structures, you'll never know what's actually needed and what's going on, right? Now, when people do come in, a lot of NGOs come in with a very specific subset of things. You need X, you need Y, you need Z. That's why what we were trying to do, which, by the way, one of the main reasons that it didn't work out is because so many people, just like you said, were married on the idea of like, you should specialize as an NGO. You should be doing water or shelter or da-da. We were like, no. You should be able to do anything and adapt to the local community. And that was a bridge too far. That's a lot of the reasons why it was difficult for us to continue with funding and things like that, because people were like, no, but that's not, you don't need to do research. We know they need water. We know they need X. Yes, they do need water. All humans need water. But what if they need shoes more? What if they need X more? We don't know that until we have that conversation. And a lot of people don't want to engage in that. And they want to split up into like, well, Shelter Box does shelters. That's all they do. Great. So if they come in and hand out shelters, of course they're going to take shelters. Like, why wouldn't you? You know what happens to those shelters? They get sold because I don't need them. I don't need that, but I can sell it for something else. Tarps in Haiti is a good example. Like, there's so many tarps dumped in Haiti. It's kind of ridiculous. But tarps are not cheap. So they would, I'd collect extra tarps. I'd go and steal tarps from a charity so I can sell that for cash, right? If you don't understand the economy and what's going on, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? And so a lot of charities kind of walk in like, we're doing the right thing. From your very centralized Western perspective, which I partially agree with you on that one. Yes, it's that Western idea of like, we're going to come in, we're here to help you, right? You're a passive recipient of aid. I hate that. That's stupid. You shouldn't be a passive recipient. You should be an active architect of your future, right? Mm-hmm. And to do that, you have to talk with them and treat them like equals. And if you just come in and do handouts, you're not doing that. Corruption, no matter how you do it, you're going to have corruption in some way, but you can minimize it by making sure the community knows what's going on. Hey, this is how many shovels we're handing out. This is how many, so on and so forth. we saw in the community that we were working with, hey, look, they spray paint stuff. They actually had like checklists of who was, of who was checking things out because they were day laborers, things like that. They told us stuff we never knew they needed, right? We didn't import stuff. To support local economy, we bought stuff locally. We bought food locally. We bought tools locally. That's requiring a different paradigm. I agree with you that the Western imperialist concept of coming in to fix things is one of the biggest problems the international humanitarian aid system has, is that they're coming in with the answers. I can't tell you the number of times I saw wells that were built in Haiti that were just built wrong. One of them was built and it's about 90 feet down to the water table, right? And the pipe was 120 feet, but it was made of metal. You don't use metal in tropical environments. It's going to rust. And within 6 months, it rusted and broke, right? Literally any 10-year-old in Haiti could have told you, don't use metal, right? My other personal favorite, someone drilled a hole and it was 100 feet down. It's 90 feet during the wet season is the water table. It's 120 feet in the dry season. So during the dry season, when they need water, there's 20 feet gap between the pipe and the water. And it's like, you didn't do you didn't think about any of this stuff, right? Or one piece breaks that you can't find anywhere, or there's no spare parts. You didn't train anyone how to fix it. Like there's so many different things that if you just talk to locals, and I think that's one of the key things. I think you're right about that, about the communication, right? If you're going to talk with people and treat them like equals, then treat them like equals. That means talk with them and also give them the space and the freedom and the safe space to be able to tell you, we don't want you here. We don't want you here. We don't want you here. In Haiti, especially, they when they see people like me coming in, it's not just people like me, but people like me. They call us blanc, like French for white. In Creole, blanc means foreigner, and it does not have a good connotation because Haiti has been really screwed over by foreigners for the past 200 years, like really, really. So you're already operating from a trust deficit. They already don't trust you. Are you selling me a Bible? Are you selling me something? Are you going to take our land away? What are you doing, right? Like, it's so. You're already walking that trust deficit. That's on you. If you're the one walking in, you have to earn that trust back to get to zero and then work on that trust. That's going to take a while, right? A good example. I was with my research director. We were out it was 8:30 in the morning, for God's sake, and we're talking to some people. They walk up to me, and I don't speak a lick of Creole. My translator was actually away, and I think they did this on purpose. And he's like, and they just kind of looked at me and they handed me like a bottle half full of clear liquid. They're like, I'm like, oh God, what is this? I smell it. It's like rot gut rum. I mean, it's like a Southern American moonshine, but worse. And I'm like, this is a test. This is an anthropological test. They are gifting me something. If I don't drink this, I am the bastard Westerner who is too good for you. And so on and so forth. So I took that bastard and I took a quarter of it back. And I was not sober for the rest of the day. An hour later, they sat down with my director of research and actually began sharing what was going on because I passed that test, right? So like these are such simple things, but so many people when they're walking in have this tunnel vision, just like you said, of this Western imperialistic, neo-colonialist, neo-imperial concept of like, but we have to do this. We have to do it this way. These people need our help. These people are poor and so on and so forth. Yes, they are poor. They're still people. They still have hopes and dreams just like everybody else. And if you treat them like they are passive recipients of aid, that's exactly what you're going to get. If you treat them as active architects. So good example, you said when you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. When you teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime, right? What if the man has no fishing pole? What if the man doesn't have a fishing net? Did you ask him first? Because if you could teach him how to fish, he has a useless skill now, doesn't he? In fact, that was one of the questions we asked. Do you guys know how to fish? We know how to fish. We don't have a net. So instead of me spending $20,000 on a fishing program, I spent $10 on a net. Wow, look at that. If you do it this way, charities save money. You're getting more targeted interventions. And those people don't feel like they're just being handed stuff. They feel like they're actually building their own thing. Because we said, here, do your own thing with it. And they were doing things with the stuff that we gave them that we never thought about because why would we? We're not living there. We're not there. They have a better idea of their needs than anybody else does. People go, oh, poor people don't know how to spend money. They know how to spend money better than anybody else does because they have so little of it. Like you ask a poor mother how to stretch dollars out, she'll show you, no question. And a lot of the things they were asking for, we would flat out say, we have $3,000 left in the budget. What do you need? Immediately sit down, create a committee. Here's a list of stuff. and they put it in order. This is the most important thing. If you have extra money, go here, go here. We don't know what that list is. We don't know how it's designed, but they do. And so to go to your point, I think the attitude of the people who are walking in is what matters almost as much as the people themselves. Because you can walk into, somewhere in the United States, into a developed country with the same attitude, just hand out free stuff. Guess what? You'll get the exact same results that you'd get in Sub-Saharan Africa, in Haiti, in Latin America, the Caribbean, all these places. Because humans are humans. They will react in different ways. If you treat people like they're poor and like they don't deserve anything and you should be lucky to have what you have, they'll act as such. If you treat people as equals, they'll yank themselves out, but you need to hand the bootstraps first, if that makes sense.
Yeah, lots of sense. My brain is always like, oh, I'm opposed to socialism and I'm like ultra libertarian Silicon Valley style. Just that I got the realization while listening to you that this Silicon Valley stuff, which arguably is good, in my opinion, that's another subject of conversation, everything considered equal. But I think to get there, you need kind of to get this ultra level of comfort, and the kids they have everything. They have food, they have education, they get bored and they need more challenge. So they take humongous risks because their life is boring. So my question is always, how can we reproduce Silicon Valley in other parts of the world? But then, when you
I can tell you right now how to do it. I can tell you right now.
Wait, there's more thinking and information. In 80, like some other thesis is like, can you force growth on someone or a country? I think we need to set our expectations straight and be like, oh, this might take more time. And I think it's probably not the right analogy. Do they want to be Silicon Valley is another question. Maybe the future is really left and right, like extreme poverty, quote unquote. And the irony here is that a lot of super rich folks are just not happy. And that is the definition of extreme poverty, when you have all the resources in the world, but you have this deep depth in your soul and cannot appreciate this flower in front of you. So it's like, what do you think about that? Because I tend to be quite opposed to socialism. Like my native Canada, I'm like, oh, the government, it supports the startup, but that's not how you do things. It's by facing extreme discomfort. Where do you need socialism and where do you need ultra capitalism? And obviously these are two extremes to make positive change in the world, knowing that we have like 3 minutes left.
So I would say honestly that these are not diametrically opposed. You can have socialism policies, democratic socialism policies like you do in the Nordic countries. Have a base, everyone's taken care of. You cannot take risks when you're that broke. You can, but it takes really, really extraordinary people to do that. And the problem about that is if you fail, people die. If you've got kids, your kids die. And that's not cool, right? Let's build a base. I'm good for a robust social safety net because as an entrepreneur, if I fail, I don't want to be on the street. I don't deserve a mansion. I'm not saying that. I'd like to have a decent place to live, not expensive, but a decent place to live. I want to make sure that I don't starve to death because I'm taking a risk. We need to incentivize risk. And to incentivize risk, you need to make sure that people have a floor and that they're not going to fall through the floor. That's the main problem, right? So when people say socialism, I'm like, socialism doesn't work unless you're in a post-scarcity economy. It just doesn't work. You can't do that. I agree with you. I totally agree with you. Ultra capitalism, on the other hand, doesn't work because everyone starts collecting money and then no one has any chance to actually get it anymore. So you actually have this freezing of money at the top and you create oligarchy, right? You have to break those up. You have to keep doing that and have to keep recycling that cash. And there's two ways to do that. One, you can redistribute it basically with the government, or two, poor people pick up weapons and do it themselves. It's your call, right? So for me, I'm like, listen, let's create a robust social safety net, strong unemployment benefits, paternity care, maternity care. You shouldn't be punished for having kids. Let's make sure everyone has health care, because health care is a huge drain on the American economy, and dental care and eye care, because I wasn't born wanting glasses, but I got them, right? So once you have that, now I'm comfortable. Now I can take whatever risks I want to, right? Now I can go nuts, and people who are ultra rich who are bored, I understand that too. Cool. Maybe you should be working on your internal thing or whatever, but for me, especially, I'm thinking about how many people who are geniuses are stuck with suboptimal outcomes in capitalism because they have to work a shit job because they have to pay their bills, or because mom is sick, or dad is sick, or sister is crippled, or something like that, and there is no robust system to take care of them. For me, I want that strong social safety net, because that person might cure cancer. That person might cure AIDS. That person might save the world. You don't know, right? Also, strong social safety net, less crime. And it's just that simple. The less poverty you have, the less crime you usually have. It never drops to zero, right? So in the long run, you save money when you have a strong social safety net. Most American hospitals are filled, the ERs are filled with homeless people. Why? That's the only healthcare they can get. That's costing me money because I've got private insurance to pay for them because they can't turn away legally. It's a huge patchwork mess, right? Every developed country except the United States has a state healthcare system for that exact reason. The bigger the insurance market, the easier it is to actually cover everybody, right? So for me, when you say, is it ultra-capitalism or ultra-socialism, I think that's a false dichotomy. I do. I think that you can, there's one way too far, one the other way too far, certainly.
Yeah.
But in the middle is something viable.
Yeah, it's kind of stress, So Greg, we're gonna do a round two because that wasn't enough time. And yeah, this is fascinating. And we didn't even start talking about starting a country. So and I mean, we kind of touched a couple of points on it, but we're gonna book something else for next Friday. But until then, when I'll publish that one, where can people find out more about you?
Go to LinkedIn, just type in my name, you can find me. Or if you want to look up the company I'm currently running, you can go to zcinstitute.com.